It's June 16, Ukraine Media Center starts its operation. My name is Shypitko, and now we will discuss the equality match that has taken place this Saturday. Joining us in the studio is Mykhailo, Yurov, project manager, and Yuliia, Shypitko, project manager at KyivPride. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So this year's Pride was 12th, if I'm not mistaken. They're taking place since 2012. So how was it? What was the number of attendance it gathered, and how was it different from the previous ones? So let me start. Well, the slogan, the official slogan was Unity in Diversity. This year, our march and with other educational events, we were discussing the LGBT component as a part of your integration of Ukraine, and also during the march, there were slogans proclaimed of the same nature. Well, the march gathered about 1,500 people. It was safe. All of the participants were not injured despite all of the provocations and threats. National Police of Kyiv did a great job. We were in constant communication with them, and we gathered a number of ranks. First was the organization column of KyivPride, then another column by the military LGBTQ, then the representatives of diplomatic offices in Ukraine, and not only them. Mykhailo will tell you more details about this. And then there was a column made of the participants of different civil organizations and other attendants of the march. Well, I can add a little bit about your integration. If someone is not aware, Ukraine is obliged to adopt the draft laws, for example, 5488 about criminalization of assaults based on hatred. So we were insisting on being part of your integrational processes. If we want to be a part of Europe, we need to take some decisions. And when it comes to diplomacy, they were the third column, and more than 100 different ambassadors, representatives of diplomatic missions and organizations, as well as international organizations, were taking part. Well, adoption of the draft law of 5488 on criminalization of crimes against LGBTQ community. What were the other requirements? What were the other demands that were proclaimed in the march? Well, about civil partnership, draft law 9103, it's not moving at all. And we talk a lot about the civil partnerships because it's about the right to use to dispose of the body and the property of the deceased persons. For the military is the key right to have the family not only informally but also legally, so that every military could inherit some property, or in case of injury to be led into a morgue, into intensive care unit, to be able to dispose of the body, of the property, common child. And it's a key right that LGBT people are not enjoying, and for the military it can be of decisive nature. Well, and when it comes to LGBT community, we're not a standalone community like now. There's a lot of accent on the people who are military, and everybody tries to help the military with different fundraisers, volunteer activities, and for them it's the most important thing. They're risking their lives, they're risking their health. Failing to enjoy the rights that heterosexual couples enjoy. And I think that it's an important argument why it's a timely thing. Why cannot we wait until the end of the war? And this is why the military LGBTQ is the second column. Traditionally, the first column is the organizers of the pride in all of the cities, the organizers who set the pace, who guide the others, and second is the LGBT plus military community column. Well, from what I understand, the draft law on civil partnership is not only useful for LGBTQ community, it's also useful for the representatives of the traditional values, because it may legalize any relations in case the people don't want to get married due to one reason or another, or they have a common household. Can you explain this to us, please? Well, obviously, if a person is heterosexual, they can be asexual, for example, or aromantic. They may not want to have any relations whatsoever and may not want to get married. But with the help of the civil partnerships, such person may, for example, enter into a partnership with their friend, either male or female, and then it works as a concept of bonded marriage, when two women may be residing together out of marriage, but they share all of the, say, household care matters. So they live like a family, but without relations. And in the same way, thanks to the civil partnership, they would be able to enter in this kind of, so to say, marriage, but without necessarily having sexual or romantic relations, and any person may enter into such partnership, whether it's a man or woman, non-binary, heterosexual, whoever. So this draft law does not discriminate anybody. Anyone can set up a civil partnership with another person. Frequently there are situations when people think in one way about cremation or the funeral, but the family thinks the other way around. So such person may enter into a civil partnership if this legislation is adopted, and close friends may be able to do the things in a way that a deceased person would have liked it to do. So let's get back to the march, the military column. Can you please tell us what was the number, the physical number of attendants? And I know there was also a banner with the pictures of LGBT communities. Some of them had their faces covered, some not. So can you please tell us about this concept? Well, the specific number of people is difficult to count. I think it was about 10 servicemen dressed in the uniform, but there might have been some people who were not dressed in the uniform due to some reasons. And I think that the military may have joined the overall column, because if the servicemen are currently still serving, they may not want to disclose their sexual orientation to their brothers and sisters in arms or their gender identity. And when it comes to banners, yeah, there was a big banner with a lot of pictures. Some of them were blurred. Some of them had their faces partially covered. And it was said, "We are their voices." And it was an opportunity to get them join the march, and also to mention the deceased LGBTQ warriors, or those who cannot disclose their identity because they are fighting in the front lines, they cannot take a vacation. So we keep talking about them, not forget them, so we walk with them in our hearts and with their pictures on the banners. Well, frequently the participation in Kyiv Pride March is equal to coming out. Some fail to understand that you may be an ally and still fight for the rights of the people, not being involved in LGBT community. So many people are afraid to attend any occasions like this, and the military LGBTQ, they have their dedicated project. If anyone was attending the KyivPride Park, there are pictures of the military. Some of them are blurred, some of them were deceased during the war, and they failed to make a coming out while alive. we cannot do it posthumously, but it's really very sad that people cannot be themselves during their whole life and even posthumously. Well, and about the last column, the diplomatic column, you've mentioned an attendance from a lot of countries. So what were the countries? Were there representatives of European Commission there? Yeah, there were representatives from Europe, there were representatives of international organizations such as Outright International, representatives of the United Nations. I cannot name all of the countries. I apologize if I forget somebody, because there was a lot of countries. There was Ambassador of Ireland, Canada, there were representatives from Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, a lot of countries, really, and we appreciate everyone's support and input. I think that the whole of the Great Britain's office was attending. They support us a lot, and it's really, really important, because we feel that when the diplomats are getting in, it's easier for us to have negotiations with the police, to organize everything. They really help us a lot, even when it's not financial, but just diplomatic support. Well, when it comes to the support, such reinforcement by foreign diplomacy, was it a lever in your negotiations with the Kyiv municipal administration and with the police? I know there were difficulties with organization. The negotiations were underway until the very last day. So did it work as a lever? Well, when it comes to some leverage, there was no such thing. It was sum of all factors, but that was one of important methods of leverage. We talk a lot to the police, and we keep hearing the same question, whether the diplomats are going to attend the activity. So if so, we will bring some reinforcement to protect the activity. Then, when we've made the first statement about the pressure in the exhibition center, and the pressure on the management of the exhibition center, a lot of diplomats wrote the appeals to the national police, to the Kyiv municipal administration, so that they get explained why such things are happening. They are expressing their support. They are saying that it's really important for Euro integration. Again, back to our slogan that unity is diversity, which is the slogan of the European unity. I think it helped us too, because we were emphasizing that we are part of European values, and many of the European representatives has taken part trying to support us. Well, there was a march for traditional values at the same time with the Pride March. They were walking across Khreshchatyk. It was not surrounded by police. They had a different atmosphere. Well, some of the faces of the police were facing the traditional values march, but the majority were looking at the Pride March. So mostly the traditional values march was represented by the men of the young age, having their faces covered. They were drawing a different picture, completely in contrast to what the Pride was looking like, where everybody was mostly smiling and stuff like that. So, in your opinion, how is it relevant for a European country, a country that is aspiring to become a member of the European Union? Well, we think that it's irrelevant what those people were doing, specifically showing the Nazi salute. I think that it would be relevant for police to pay attention to it, because those pictures, they will fly all around the world. They may be used by Russian propaganda, and some Russian propaganda, like anti-Ukrainian propaganda abroad. And it's not only about them trying to walk in the direction of KyivPride march, but I mean how harmful it may be for the whole of Ukraine, the whole of our society as a phenomena. And yes, I've seen those photos. I've heard their voices as they were approaching us from Khreshchatyk as we were entering the subway. In fact, contrast is obvious, it's drastic, and it's really surprising that in that march where they proclaimed the values of the family, the children, there were no families and no children, where there were women, but they were coming in small numbers. Fortunately, there were no kids, there were no children. Well, there were pictures of children who they were looking like least children. I mean, I really apologize for such words, but they didn't look organic at all. Well, obviously, any person in Ukraine may express their thoughts as prescribed by the law, but it should be happening without hate speech, without prohibited symbols, for example, Nazi gestures, without such phrases as death to LGBT, because it's the language, it is the hate speech. We don't want to prohibit any marches that don't consent with us. They have right to walk out in the street and to talk about their values, but the question is how they speak about their values. But it's not only about talking. They try to break through the police chain. They do harm to the policemen, and they try to do physical harm to us. So how do they talk about their values? In which way?
It's interesting that you said that we had a lot of police personnel that they were going along the Kreshchatyk Street, but we noted that the it has to be noted that LGBT has never organized or arranged any kind of such marches where people attack other people or just make fuss, make a lot of noise or express disrespect to somebody and so on and so on. So I hope that next time we will be having a march for the Pride March. I hope next time that the measures will be taken. Measures will be taken to prevent such occurrences. Like even the title, like the traditional values march, it doesn't fit to the actions that they were conducting. This march should have been called a neo-Nazi march, at least, or because when it comes to violence or neo-Nazi symbolics, it is something that has to be fought against. As far as I remember, we have Pride marches every year, right? I think it was only 1 year skipped. So why do you think it is important to do these marches every year? Well, it is important to have these marches to show to the people, to the police even, that we are serious about our views, because we hear all the time that this is only your hobby, this is just an entertainment for you, but it's not like that, and this is what we're trying to show. We wouldn't have risked our lives or health by marching along with our ideological enemies if we didn't, if we were not serious. Yes. If we don't do those marches, it just means that there is a regress, that there is a reverse movement in our European integration. So it's good. It's a good thing that we had our pre-arrangements with the governmental representatives arranged. Normally, I think that these marches should continue during the war and also after the war, because it's not really about the war. I think that the marches, the ones that we witnessed was the marches of the kind that we witnessed during our march has been conducted in Kyiv every year for many years, even a few times a year. So this kind of marches should be actions should be fought against. And very important to note that it is
well, it's very important to note that some of such activities may be looking like a step back. Well, you had some difficulties organizing one of the latest marches. You had negotiations with the management of the exhibition center, and so how come it happened? Well, I want to thank Courage. They restored one of the pavilions called the Well. It was free of charge, just to support the community. They generally were quite friendly. They had an exhibition shop organized. They were selling cool merch. This weekend, we were trying to warn them about the pressure. We didn't know how hard the pressure would be, but at some moment, the management of the National Exhibition Center started experiencing pressure. They said there were different police commanders coming to them talking about some indirect threats. So it was not a direct threat, but rather some well-argumented warnings. Yep, the police cannot prohibit the activity, and they don't do any permits. They don't provide permits. They only ensure security during the activity. That's why they came to the management of the National Exhibition Center. They said there will be 1,000 people attacking or wanting to attack. There may be possible or potential acts of terrorism. They cannot ensure the security at the National Exhibition Center, and the management of the exhibition center wanted definitely to ensure the security, and the police told them just the only way to ensure the security is to lock all of the entrances and exits, which is going to kill all of the activities during that day. So they had to reject us to provide that pavilion because we were unable to obtain some letter from the police. They just said we're not going to lock all of the entrances, and it was a part of the pressure exercised by the police. So there was a strategic resolution made to make it in a public space near the building of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They support the LGBTQ rights the most. We are thankful that they were able to provide us with this space. Well, and we held Pride Park there. We also want to thank the police for pressing away the attackers. We were noticing such attempts. But even during the activity we've seen there was no 1,000 attackers. Also there were phrases about thousands of acts of terrorism and 1,000 missiles. Maybe it was all prevented by the police, but probably those warnings were a little bit too inflated to just cancel our activity. We were trying to discuss it with the management of the National Exhibition Center, but we understand, definitely we understand the management of the exhibition center when the representatives of authority tell you some information, and people who were facing that, who have been facing such pressure for 10 years, they say nothing's going to happen. I mean, we obviously understand whom are they going to listen to, so we forwarded a letter to the Ministry of Interior. If they have any information about some acts of terrorism, potential acts of terrorism, please provide such information to us. They failed to provide any information to us, which made us think that such information was just untrue. And to finalize it, let me ask you one more thing. Since Ukraine is moving along its Euro integration course, the legislation should be also adopted in terms of protection of human rights, including LGBTQ rights. Are you feeling any changes taking place in this area? And among those draft laws that you've mentioned, are there any initiatives or implemented legislative initiatives that would improve the life of the LGBTQ community? For what I know, back in 2023, there was a resolution adopted on prohibition of the hate speech in media based on gender, sex, and other characteristics. It was a small but still a step. Well, the things are moving, but moving slowly, and it depends a lot on whether our roadmap will be accepted in EU. So I think there should be a path away from the EU that, like, okay, we're moving along this roadmap, and probably after that resolution the changes will be taking place faster. And by the way, we know that Ukraine reports to Europe, to international donors, on LGBTQ activities, including KyivPride, and they report that Ukraine ensured the secure activity. And it's important to see for the Europe that Ukraine doesn't press on the price, that they ensure the security, that we don't have any recoil in terms of human rights. And European partners really dislike it when things like that happen. And is yet another argument. Well, you've mentioned that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the only ministry that actively supports it because they provide you with the opportunity to hold your events near their premises. Was it attended by any of the representatives of MFA? We don't have any such information. I think it's difficult, for the representatives of the ministry to attend it. It looks either as a direct support or coming out or the protest. So again, it's very difficult for a representative of ministry to attend activity like this.
Often the officials do attend these events, not in the uniform, but incognito, so to speak, so that they can actually visit or attend these events, and they don't do official statements or announcements. However, we know that informally they do support our Pride March. And I know that a lot of different people who work for governments were attending this event, and they were there, but they just didn't, they didn't make it public. There was an ambassador, the female ambassador of Canada. She was there, and we saw representatives of other embassies, of diplomatic organizations. Thank you very much. I do sincerely believe that with such zeal, your team will continue to arrange Pride marches every year, and I hope it will be it will become more and more numerous, and also I hope that the reports are not only on the paper, but that real practical steps are taken. So thank you very much, everybody, and glory to heroes, glory to Ukraine.